Welcome back to the Middlemen of Jurors. My case. The purpose of education is to replace an empty mind with an open one. It dates with age and rage. The Minister of Education, Professor Tahir Mamman, has announced that the federal government had instituted a new age policy for secondary school, leaving examinations setting the minimum age at 18. This means any candidate below 18 years will no longer be allowed to sit for the West African Senior School Certificate Examination and the Senior School Certificate Examination, both crucial for advancing to tertiary education. This is a clear violation of the Child Rights Act to have such a policy. The child rights to education are guaranteed under the Constitution and the Child Rights Act. Section 39, subsection 1 of the 1999 Constitution provides as follows. Every person shall be entitled to freedom of expression, including freedom to hold opinions and to receive and impart information without interference. Section 15, subsection 1 of the Child Rights Act says every child has a right to free, compulsory, and universal basic education, and it shall be the duty of the government in Nigeria to provide such education. Now, at no point in our laws was it implied, written, or deduced that a child should not be allowed to sit for wax until he is 18 years of age. Rather, the Constitution forbids any form of interference to the development of learning and impartation of knowledge. The Child Rights Act re-echoes the child's right to education, and same is paramount in the scheme of things. This policy is a disincentive to scholarship, to say the least. The Nigerian child is smart, and many are geniuses. So the least we can do is to build incentives around their intellectual prowess rather than stifle the present burden of their mental growth. It is a cardinal sin to tell a child who just concluded his secondary education at 15 to wait for 3 years before he can be qualified to write WAEC. Instead of our leaders to expand our educational system and revive technical education, they are busy concocting a plot to stagnate children with prospects. I must go to court to challenge this. My verdict: this age limit policy cannot be implemented without a law. There must be an act of parliament before this policy can be binding on students in Nigeria. It is wrong to make such a sensitive policy without the people's input. There must be deliberations and consultations before we can come to this. Nigerians are not puppets. Without legislation, there cannot be 18 years limits that a child must attain before he can sit for any examination in the country. This is really unfortunate. And I therefore call on the proponents of this policy to withdraw same with immediate effects. I shall go to Rabbi again.
We don't hear you.
Very wonderful stuff. You see, it's sad that someone who was the vice chancellor of a university now is now the Minister of Education.
The DG of Law School. He was also the DG of Law School.
It's so embarrassing.
Tahir Mamman.
Yes.
The fact that he's even a professor.
It's so embarrassing.
I do not believe our politicians who like to divide us across ethnicity or north or religion, south or religion or anything like that. But look at Dr. Ganduje, PhD PhD public administration. When he was governor, he was empowering his own people, not with education, no. It was with wheelbarrow, noodles, eggs, and bread for them to become matey. Look at a professor.
It's entrepreneurship. Why are you angry?
No, but that's on the base time.
That's the kind of empowerment that I will empower.
Who said it's a bad thing?
Why doesn't China? Why doesn't China?
I disagree. I disagree.
No.
You are serious.
Send them.
I absolutely disagree.
Yeah.
How?
I will empower my family.
The man has
Children.
He has read book to the point where he has
He knows what is best for us.
Yes.
Look, I will
have a PhD, but you are saying
I will empower my family member to go and sell bread and noodles.
No.
It's not the role of government. The role of government, the red constitution now, is to educate the citizens.
No, but the constitution.
Now look at
It's not the government's job. It's not the government's duty actually.
May I ask a question? Professor Mama's children, at what point did they go to the university? Did you not from now mention that Nigerian children are geniuses? Today, just age where a 2-year-old can dismantle your phone and repackage it for you. You will finish secondary school at 14 because although I did WAEC at 17, I had a school daughter in JSS who was 9 years old. Meaning at 14, she'll be ready to do WAEC. You finish secondary school at 14, then go and sit at home and be smiling at your parents for 4 years. And then enter, you cannot do that WASC for another 3 years. Jam will be jamming you, NECO will be jamming you until you are 21. If you now enter the university at 21, ASU will now jam you again for another 5. If you want to even now do medicine, you will be 30 in that school. What kind of?
You know what the problem is? The problem is in the fact that the president appoints outdated people to manage very sensitive.
And they say he knows how to fish.
Yes, education is not for the feeble-hearted. Education is the ornament of prosperity and refuge in adversity.
What's the discipline? What did he read?
He has to be a lawyer.
He was former teacher of law school. But you know what is happening to him now has nothing to do with what he read or didn't read. Once you are outdated,
he's obsolete.
Once you are outdated, you are outdated. It does not matter.
The age of his ideas are outdated.
This is the season where we are supposed to build incentive around education. The school feeding program, how far have they gone with that?
Didn't work.
The incentive and scholarship they are supposed to use to promote technical education, promote education. I mean, I've seen.
No, but you know, it worked in Osun State, but they just couldn't replicate it across other states. El-Rufai said in Kaduna, they will come and collect their egg and go back home.
No. So you see, on Saturday we had this conversation here on Enterprise a weekend, and somebody who had gone to visit schools, who has a hands-on experience with the world, was saying that the school feeding program on its own is not enough to draw children to school because learning facilities are not available. True. Modern learning infrastructure is not in place. Teachers are not being trained and retrained. So even though they are hungry, how can I go and give students food and then
there's no motivation?
And then the last feeding stuff you did, you said because there was corruption, you stopped it. Now you're bringing it back. You've not investigated the last one.
The most important thing about this policy is how, based on religion, right, from Professor Tahir Maman's region, a girl of 12, 13 years old can be married off. But that same girl, you tell her she's not matured enough to go to university or even sit or even just even try the WAEC or NECO until she's a full adult that can drive, that can vote,
that can go to prison.
You see, this is not just the professor now. You see, they will have a behemoth around this. Okay, this is how they created this educational less developed states. When at that time when we wrote JAM, there were some persons in this country, parts of region of this country, that they couldn't pass JAM. So they now said that the cutoff will not be flat. That from people from educationally disadvantaged states, we need just maybe 130 to study law. While people from educationally high whatever states, like I remember that I got 260, 276 thereabout. But I got admission with people that had 200. You understand? And we were supposed to compete in class. Little wonder they were very bad. Some of them had to drop out.
Yeah, we'll drop out
they
now.
couldn't cope. You understand? So what he's trying to do is looking at a particular region of the country. How these people are too fast. Like, don't they wait for
The people at the
us
back.
from this side? And that is satanic.
Jesus.
For you to ask someone that have intellectual prowess to wait for someone that is a dullard.
Do you know that they are
don't wait
graduates
for
at
anybody.
18? Do you
Yeah,
know
you don't have to
graduates
wait.
at 18?
You don't have to wait for
There are
anybody.
some children, by the time you leave secondary school at 15, if you go to a private university that actually is not striking anywhere, in 4 years you are out. By 18 you are a graduate. In fact, their own children that are going abroad, that their university is only 3 years. By 21, they have PhD. How do you then see that?
So,
and who are what they call them? National NEC, National Executive Council, that approved.
Yeah,
No, you see, that Federal Executive Council can be overruled because there's no legislation on
They're
ground.
violating the Constitution.
Yes, and
No, but they-
apart from the fact that violating the Constitution, there's no legislation on ground. They have to come up with a bill in that Federal Executive Council meeting. It's an executive bill and send it to the National Assembly. The National Assembly will now work that through. It will now be maybe Nigerian age, whatever law. So if you don't have a law, you cannot wake up one day use a policy.
From that,
Use a policy to write a written law.
we were told that this policy has been in existence in the 70s, or even was it the 80s?
It was 16.
Yeah.
It was 16. I know now. When I entered, that's the University Commission.
Yeah.
The University Commission Act. You understand? So now, if you want to do anything, you have to go and amend that law,
That law.
and it has to go through legislation. That's what I'm saying.
And then the other thing,
You can't use a policy to rewrite a
the
written
other
law.
thing is that you want people who won't retire. They keep doctoring their ages, right?
Yeah, that's what they're going to create.
You are not saying judges should retire at 70, even when it's clear that look they can't contribute.
It was even
anything.
65 before.
They're not in the educational sector. You will put 65. Whereas for me, everybody should just retire at 60, whether you are a judge or teacher, or just retire at 60, so that because of the age of ideas, you mentioned something, the age of ideas keeps changing.
I agree.
Yes, so I wonder what I'll be doing at 60 when you have Gen Zs who are actually rewriting things. Then you have artificial intelligence that's even machine learning that's aiding that's aiding educational development. What am I still doing when I went to school in the 70s, 80s, 90s? What will I become? How will I compete with Gen Zs on the 21st century? So the basic thing is this: for me, we have a population of over 200 million people. Nobody is a lone superstar.
True.
Let's leave this thing at 16. Then let everybody retire at 60. Go and look for other things to do. Then so that people will be interested in career progression. Nigerians can keep
To buttress what you said, me that went to school in the 2000s, my ideas are obsolete. That's why I keep going back.
Yeah.
Because you see new theories. You be looking at the theories that you learned and the current practice, and you see that they are a disparity. Then you were talking about Federal Executive Council and the laws. When President Tinubu flew into the country to swear in a chief judge that had not been approved by the National Assembly, where is the law gone?
The same mistake they made some years ago, if you remember, when Katsina
law. Of the Court of Appeal.
The same mistake.
Are we still using this
So when we were to move from one CJN to another,
Yeah.
There was going to be a kind of a lacuna. And then we keep repeating the same thing. And again, it's also funny. If you are bringing this age, you think Nigerian parents will just sit idly by.
All of us will go to Benin and Togo.
No, we'll go to.
We're even going to Rwanda. Do you know? There was one. I'm telling you, University of Rwanda sent me a press statement now. I'll forward it to you. Nigerian students did that. Rwanda has a good education system.
Yeah,
Why? Who say we're not going?
They will go.
We will
Nigerians are going to Angola.
We will go to Benin.
Nigerians are even going to Sudan. Nigerians are going to
We are going to Turkey. We are going to Sudan. I know.
That Sudan have been long ago. There's a university there.
Sanusi.
No, we go to Sudan. We go to Turkey. We go to Kazakhstan.
Everywhere.
There's
relocating with my children to another country so that let them do.
I hope they are hearing, sir.
It will just even create another japa.
Sometimes.
So we'll not japa wherever. It doesn't matter any country.
Minister of Education, do not let Nigeria happen to you.
But you see, with the way we see this is happening in our country, sometimes you just wonder. It brings home the business of thinking that goes into a lot of things within this country. But no, it's not. He said it was satanic. If ever there was a conversation around this policy decision, right, or direction, and they agreed, whosoever they were that agreed that we should move this into 18 and make it stringent for Nigerians. The minister, when they prepared on him, he said, okay, this year 16, then from next year 18.
Is that how policies are made? So you start making policies impulsively from your head, like you are. See, this policy cannot stand the test of as long as there's no legislation on ground.
But let's even ask. When we were to build an atomic bomb in America, right? Oppenheimer and his team at Los Alamos, there was a young man. I think Theodore Hall. He was around 16 or 17. He had got a PhD from Harvard, right, or Oxford, in physics or maths. So he went there to go, and he was part of the project. Theodore Hall was very young, 14 years old, when he got into Harvard. Now the question is this: assuming without conceding that we move the age to 18, what is Nigeria's national policy and program for geniuses?
For where?
They're done. Then let me tell you what will happen.
Do you know what the special school is?
As you move into that 18, the child will now start that school. When he concludes the school,
he'll be 25.
Now, the employer will now ask him to go and bring 20 years experience. That must have 15 years experience and must be less than
30. 19 and finished at 25.
So it's a
because I don't jump 3 times.
I entered at 18.
It's a contradiction.
And because of ASU,
yes,
I finished at over 23.
And then you see that ASU thing, you have not even solved that problem. Which is a stumbling block. Now you don't want the child to why don't you allow the child to get in early? Because he's going to confront your shenanigans.
Yeah. They also want to put the burden on parents, on us parents, so that we keep feeding these children.
Even besides all this, where I schooled, there was a high propensity. Is that the word?
Right.
Was high that out of say 100 of you who left secondary school, not up to 20
will get into the university.
Will proceed to investing. The ladies.
So now that they are even asking them to go and stay at home for years,
they will become pregnant. I have a cousin like that who was an exceptionally brilliant young girl, but waiting for admission.
3 years, because when you finish at 15, you wait for 3 years.
Is that man not right?
Who is not?
So then, back in the day, today I think it's fairly easy for people to pass NECO and WAEC. But before now, it wasn't always that easy. People wrote sometimes WAEC for 4 years, 5 years. And it took the children of.
So when you start writing at 18, when will you now finally enter university?
I had a friend when we finished secondary school.
Why don't we even then talk about the age of enrollment into? You see, this whole discussion should have been around Nigeria's broader education policy.
There shouldn't even be an age.
There should not be. There should never be. You bring employers of labor, you bring government, then you bring people in education. You say, let's have a conversation.
You are asking Nigeria's policy on education. Is there any?
Because you see, in civilized countries before they make policies like this, they go to see a maester or group of maesters, those who have studied the work of Aristotle and the rest of them. In those days, used to be Aristotle and the rest of them. They go to Greece, they will sit down and they will conjure intellectually. They will give you the best solution to your problem. Here, we just gather, we think we know. Look at the set of people that are taking that decision. These are people that are disconnected from reality. I mean, this is not good enough for our country. I think this is unfortunate. And the government should stay away from that policy. Okay, so when we return, Jurosiri Abaku's pathological optimism about Nigerians' greatness has led him to don a prophet's toga with his case titled A New Civilization. Do be here.